Hello and welcome to the Lost Long Island channel. This is my first video that I'm releasing on this channel. I'm so excited to share with you some artifacts I found in Garden City, New York, and I got to go on a lot of fun tours, and we're going to go through these slides together, and we're going to see what I think, and we're going to listen to the history of what they're telling us here. Today's main point of focus will be Garden City, New York, where bells hang high from world's fairs gone by. We'll be taking a tour of the Cathedral of the Incarnation, and we'll also be looking at the Seas House and the surrounding artifacts that I found while taking a tour of the grounds. Enjoy! I'd like to give a shout out to Old World New York channel for giving me the inspiration for finishing my video. They say great minds think alike, and we were researching this around the same time in 2023, and he released a great video about Garden City back in March, so feel free to check that out. He has some great photography skills, and I'm sure we're going to do a collab sometime in the future. I'd like to present with you now my original research I found in Garden City, New York. Here's an old photo from 1907. It's very grainy, and you would think in 1907 they'd have a clearer shot. But what you're looking at is the East Meadowbrook headwaters, where it comes from the ground in the Hempstead Plains. And it comes out right around here. You can see some kind of brick or stonework here, I'm not sure. But I do know that people like to build spring houses over certain bodies of water so they can keep their food cool and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a structure here at some point. And I do have footage of it present day. It doesn't look like this at all. In fact, if you didn't know it was there, you would miss it every time. But I was exploring it sometime last year, and I have some interesting footage of that. If this channel does well, I will release it. Check it out. This looks kind of like blockwork here, brickwork here along the banks. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if there was blockwork here. Long Island's a very old place, and these places were settled, even though they say that the plains were the plains and they didn't have any buildings here. As you can see, even in 1907, it looks very bare and barren. But you have this spring here. I'm sure it played a part in the Native Americans' way of life too, for a long time. Here you are looking west-northwest in a dry valley near southeastern corner of Hempstead Plains, showing a few small oaks and birches along the horizon, September 1910. If you were to stand here present day, 99.8% of this land is built over with roads and schools and, all the like. So you're very close to the brush here. It was a very brushy type of plains, and the horizon line is pretty close, in my opinion, and the sky is completely whited out, and the trees are all one height. So what do you guys think of this picture? Leave a comment below. Alexander Turney Stewart bought these plains to create Garden City, basically. He bought a huge expanse of land. The Hempstead Plains was a gigantic piece of land, and he bought all of it basically and built Garden City within it. Alexander Turney Stewart was an American entrepreneur who moved to New York and made his multi-million-dollar fortune in the most extensive and lucrative dry goods store in the world. Stewart became one of the 20 wealthiest people in history as of 2007 with a fortune to equivalently blah 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 $90 billion. Okay, that's a lot of money. Uh, Guys, look at this picture. If you Google Alexander Turney Stewart, you're going to have a hard time finding an actual photo of the man. And the next slide you're going to see, I believe, is supposed to be another photo of Alexander Turney Stewart. I couldn't find the same photo of him. It was either a drawing or even an engraving, as we're going to see. What do you guys think? Take a look at an engraving of Alexander Turney Stewart. So this is another thing I found while Googling, and is this really supposed to be the same man as the picture before on the Wikipedia? Are we to believe that despite, not having a beard, that this would be the same man, Alexander Turney Stewart? Are we gonna agree upon that? What do you guys think about that? Because I don't think it's the same. Here is a quote by Alexander Turney Stewart with this picture linked to that quote, and that doesn't even look like the same either of the two guys from last, like, so I don't know. You will deal with ignorant, opinionated, and innocent people. You will often have an opportunity to cheat them. If they could, they would cheat you, or force you to sell it less than cost. You must be wise, but not too wise. You must never actually cheat the customer, even if you can. You must make her happy and satisfied so she will come back. Here we see an aerial drawing of Garden City around 1870s, and you can see a partially finished cathedral in the background, and you can see his private train line probably around here is where it stops, just across the street from the cathedral, to even in present day. But I want you to notice something about these trees here. Now in the book, the founding of Garden City, they did mention of the planting of numerous mature shade trees. So this must be that, okay? I want you to keep those trees in mind when we take a look at this next photo that I managed to find for you guys. Here is an aerial picture of the drawing we just saw, and you can see the lack of trees in any way, but you do see a cathedral that looks to be being worked on. It's missing the spire, obviously, and a lot of ornamentation and all these other spires here that would have been here. Cool, and it doesn't look like it's so brown. It looks more white, actually. And I just realized talking about it now, Cornelia, she envisioned a white cathedral, and it ended up being brown. I wonder if this is just the pre-texture or this was white at some point. Obviously, the cathedral's not white, like I said, but interesting colors and lack of trees, like I said before. No trees surrounding the streets like we saw in the aerial drawing. And actually the sky is very white. It looks, the whole background seems to be bled out here. And so yeah, so take a look. This is just a screenshot of the timeline between Alexander Stewart passing away and Cornelius Stewart planning the cathedral. So it says within a month of his passing away, she was already planning this cathedral, and it would be of Gothic style with white marble. And he'd be interred in the mausoleum, and Henry G. Harrison's architect and James Lahomedew had given satisfaction as builder of Garden City. So James Lahomedew is big in this Garden City construction process. These are screenshots from the National Register of Historic Places inventory nomination form. You see, I was able to obtain these with a few emails back and forth as the Wikipedia was unavailable. But you see, basically, he would rent out these apartments, or basically giant houses, and nobody would actually buy. They would be renting forever. So he wanted to be like lord of everything, basically, of this place, Garden City. And only until much later were people able to buy their homes. And it's interesting the way it was set up, like the law there. You can't buy, you could only rent, and high fixed rents. So it says it right there in the nomination form. Pretty interesting for a planned suburban community. Remember how I mentioned those documents earlier? Well, this was just one of the buildings that I found on those documents, public documents that cite the architect is Henry G. Harrison with a question mark in parentheses. Then we have the builders, James Lahomedew. And then we have apparently this, and then of course the date is probably something next to the Norwegian house. I don't know if you wrote this on your forms to get, you know, be renewed at the DMV, you wouldn't be able to get through with that. So here's an interesting fact. If you translate Homedew, you get man god from French. I thought that was pretty interesting. What do you guys think about that? Here is the obituary from James Lahomedew. It is said that he left Port Jefferson where his boyhood passed, and he came to New York as a journeyman carpenter, going back to Long Island a few years later to superintend the building of a house at Great Neck. He settled there and founded one of the largest building firms in the country. Builds one house, gets the largest building firm in the country. Then it goes into a whole thing about contacting his son about his death, but then it gets interesting on the last paragraph. It is said that he built more houses than any other man in this country. Okay, so that's interesting because I haven't heard of him other than Garden City. He built the cathedral at Garden City, Tuxedo Park, and many houses along Rumson Road, Seabright, and at Newport, Southampton, Long Island are his work. Lahomdu was a staunch Democrat and has been for many years the party leader at Great Neck. It's worth noting here that James Lahomdu went on to build Tuxedo Park, founded by Pierre Loryard, and decided to establish a countryside hunting and fishing getaway for himself. And he worked with William Waldorf Astor to find a suitable location for this wealthy enclave of houses. You're looking at the Tilford House, a typically grand red brick and fieldstone construction, similar to the Bishop's House found in Garden City, if it had been built by James Lahomdu. Tuxedo Park deserves its own video in this regard. This brick structure is the only public building which remains from Stewart's original planned village, built to house a 200 horsepower Holley compound steam engine and 4 force pumps. The waterworks supplied residences and hydrants through 8 miles. This is a photo I took of some bricked up arches back here. You see that it once did have stained glass windows. If you cite the book, The Founding of Garden City, there were stained glass windows here at one point. So you can see it's taller than the washroom. Must be at 8 to 10 feet. And check out this old world example of beauty and splendor. These red bricks really shine in the sun, and they stand out from all other structures around it in the area. The beautiful arches and ornamentation, great to look at, and I always get chills when I drive past it on the street. We're going to go inside this today, and we're going to find some interesting little pictures and fireplace mantles, and as well as a really great stone pot. Are you ready? Here's a side-by-side comparison of a picture I took while walking around the grounds and a picture of it when it was just built. And you can see that there's just a lot of shrubs around, a lot of bushes here. And now I just want you to take a look at the arches here in this story. Take a look, they're same today. You got the steps going up to the first floor. All right, nothing crazy about that, but I just want to note those little things. And as for the most part, it probably looks the same today as it was built back then because it's in great condition. Here is the side of the bishop's house, and you see arches here, bricked, made, beautiful arches here. And you see that there is a window back there. I zoomed in on my own, different photos, and you see the light reflection there. And there's a lot more to this photo than meets the eye, especially if you're going to look over here and you're going to see this stone pot here. And hello, what is that? We're going to find out. Inside we find what appears to be an original stone floor. And just look at that pattern. That was awesome to see. And then you see the fireplace here. Probably original mahogany work. Note the interesting scale pattern on the fireplace mantle there. Very cool. You know, just around here. Very cool. And look, check out these little things here. Awesome. Here's a portrait of Cornelius Stewart located in the bishop's house. Notice the 10-foot doorways located throughout the house. Here's something interesting I found while walking around the bishop's house. What do you think of those numbers at the bottom? Like, subscribe, comment, and share. We're just getting started. Well, what do we have here? Zoomy zoom zoom. Well, you guys press pause when you can, because my editing skills are not good. Well, we have a bricked up arch here, and this is the second one I've seen. Take a look at this pocket here, right around there. You see that little pocket? Interesting. It looks like it's a hollow place. I couldn't get close to it, but very cool. The ancient stone pot from before. It tells a real story in procession of time. I am unfamiliar with the story it tells. I'm going to point out some really cool things about this. This looks like it belongs in a museum. So it's just sitting out, and it's not really made of stone. I believe it's either ground up stone, a concrete, geopolymer, or brick material or clay, molded or casted into this 4 foot stone pot. This thing looks awesome. Take a look at this small humanoid figure and this much larger humanoid figure with like a big staff weapon type thing. Might be a shield here. Who knows? This person looks to be in chains though, and their hands appear to be bound by those chains. And this guy is probably her captor for whatever. And a horse back here, gigantic horse, I'm saying, like a 20-foot tall horse. The ancient pot on a sunny day, you could see the humanoid figures worn with time, but the sun brings out the granular texture of this material, whatever this thing is made of. You could see different speckles of pebbles and sand, and if you pause it right at the right time, see that pine tree in there? If you pause it at the right time, you can catch like the granular texture here. I mean, that is so cool looking. Look at that. I want that to be my wallpaper. Look at that. Look at that. I want this to be my wallpaper when I wake up in the morning. And just take a look at some exclusive photos I share with you about this pot in particular. So on the left, you see the very back of this pot, and it looks to be a brick structure here with brick lines. And you see a tower of some sort that releases heat, gas, maybe smoke. Very cool. So you have his arm stoking the fire, this humanoid figure here, right? Have like a mouth jawline I feel is there, and you have a head that loops around there. See? Pretty big cranium here. There's the eyes. Behind him is another humanoid figure with a very big cranium here. Okay, here's her eyes and little mouth and little. I feel like this one looks more female for some reason. Smaller jaw, right? So, and then you have on the left, you have these two humanoid people, really cool. You see like a nose here, lips, right? And look at all that growth there. This is so cool to look at. Guys, I had to press myself up against the building to get these. But it's all for you guys in history, so if you're enjoying it, why not you just leave a like at this point, because you've been made it this far. Take a look at this he's holding. Look, his shoulders here. This is so cool. If you know the story of these guys or their what they're wearing or anything, I'd love to hear more about it. Here's just one more angle of the same pot, just to really see a different day and farther away. You see the humanoid figures at the height differences, a humanoid figure here standing, and then you see a horse right here. He's up to the horse's neck. All right, so that's like not that unusual. But there's this guy over here who's much taller. We saw him, who's much taller than the horse. It's just showing different height differences, and you can see the humanoid figures a little more clearly from this angle. Interesting. Here's just a little excerpt from the book. The building is supposed to be fireproof. There is no studding except at the door and window frames. Heat is furnished by drawing in air in tubes and outside the walls and passing it over steam coil pipes. The stables are in a low brick building to the southwest. There are 6 stalls, and in one of them yesterday the bishop's horse, munched oats as though he had come to stay. So that's the bishop's house heating. St. Paul's School, 1883. The Episcopal school dedicated to the memory of A.T. Stewart was also designed by Henry Harrison and built by James Humdu. The long monumental brick structure rises 3 stories above a raised basement. Tall mansard roofs add a fourth story to the projecting wings at the center and ends of the school. The overall length of the building is 260 feet each, with each wing extending 170 feet perpendicular to the central mass. Take a look at this beautiful building that still stands in Garden City today. Fenced around and inaccessible, its architecture is clearly out of place in our current modern Long Island here. But it's just so beautiful to look at. Let's look at some photos. Here are some pictures I took walking around St. Paul's School on a cloudy day. It brings out the most beautiful different shades and angles in the bricks, with the shadows being cast in a subtle way as opposed to being too lit up like a sunny day. You really do see some old world colors here with the brick, and of course they did mention the raised basement windows, raised basement up. This building, it just, when you drive past it, it just gives a creepy like vibe, and it's so cool at the same time because it just comes out like a shadow every time in my eyes. Old World New York channel that I mentioned before also has some great photos of this place. And now we move on to the Cathedral of the Incarnation. Opened its doors for services in 1885 and began work construction in around 1776, with plans being drawn up soon after Alexander Turney Stewart's death. It is made of the outside is Jersey brownstone from New Jersey, and its spire rises up, and there's a 6-foot cross at the top, and I just love the style of these ornamentations here, little spires. Cool. What do you guys think? I took this on a cloudy day. Looks pretty cool. I like these shingles here, different alternating colors there a little bit. This is another photo I took of the cathedral, and this was the day of the tour. And just another great shot of the different colors of the brownstone and the little miniature spires here. And we'll get a zoomed in shot of this one up here. Interesting. And this would be the difference in color here I would attribute to the addition of an elevator to the bottom floor. And just a great, beautiful building. I really like the red accents up here and the shingles. Different colors interspaced. A lot of thought went into that. Beautiful structure. Here's the back of the cathedral on a sunny day. You can see this would be the high altar on behind this wall. You see the really tall steeple here with the 6-foot cross up top. They said that the light would cause ships to run aground. They thought it was a lighthouse. That's what I was told on the tour. Interesting. So, just a beautiful structure altogether. In 1876, Philadelphia held its World's Fair Centennial Exposition. In that World's Fair featured a gigantic structure, Machinery Hall, and the bells from Machinery Hall found their way to this beautiful bell tower and still ring to this day. When you walk into the vestibule of the cathedral, you'll notice an engraving on the floor. Seems like it is a type of coat of arms, if you would. Not quite sure. I'm going to give my opinion on some of these things. Take, for example, in the middle of the shield there appears to be squares, as if something were there, indicating a message, now gone. I wonder what those probably used to say. They look like just blank tile inlays. And then in the top here, we see a curved beak bird that is biting its neck, and the blood drips down to its young in the nest here. The bird is symbolizing Christ as the pelican feeding its young. in alchemy and Rosicrucianism, excuse me, I'm kind of tired. That was also a symbol of Christ and renewal and sacrifice. So they always say, pelicans, pelicans, and sometimes it doesn't look like a pelican. Well, this is one of those times because the bird has a curved beak like a bird of prey and not like a scoop beak like most pelicans have. Very cool engraving. The entrance to the cathedral. You notice the organ pipes also in the rafters above coming out. Here you see above the high altar a Byzantine-inspired painting by Robert Wilshire, who was regarded as a person who enjoyed symbols in his works. Let's get a zoomed in picture of that. Here's a zoom in shot of that same painting. What do you guys think about this? On the basement level, you find pictures and drawings of Alexander Turney Stewart, Cornelius Stewart, Bishop Lee, and the architect Henry Harrison. You see the bishop's hammer and the that placed the cornerstone here, and other artifacts in the basement level. I believe this one is Hope. This one is made of Carrara marble and took 4 years to finish. I was told it's the likeness of Cornelius Stewart. This is the statue named Religion, also made of Carrara marble, and is featuring a model of the cathedral standing upon a Bible, which rests upon a pillar or pedestal. You can see she's holding her white robes, and just a great piece of artwork. A couple of years after Alexander Turney Stewart was buried in the cathedral, his body was kidnapped from his final resting place. It wasn't until a few years after that they were able to recover the body, basically a blackmail deal from the kidnappers. And at that point in time, he was rested in the cathedral. It is believed he rests behind this urn. And what you're looking at is the crypt, which I was able to go to on the regular tour. I was a little bit hesitant to take photos, but this happened to be from the church website, so you can go see it on their own website. I guess it's not that weird. And the walls are all marble, and I was told that there's moisture in the room, and of course, because it's underground. I asked if there was a spring and was told there is no underground spring below this cathedral. Here is the time capsule in commemoration of the Cathedral of the Incarnation Centennial Celebrations, June 1986. Unseal in June of 2036. All right. Check out the cool letter A's here, capital A's. Very, very pointy. Cool time capsule. The date 1876, etched into the side of Jersey brownstone. While the physical work on the cathedral was going on, the benefactress and her agent, Judge Hilton, were no less busy acquiring costly additional furnishings. In December 1876, Miss Stewart purchased a magnificent chime of bells, 13 in number, symbolic of the original states, formerly exhibited in the tower of Machinery Hall at the Great Philadelphia Centennial Exposition. Each bell was cast in perfect tone, and the whole chime was regarded as perhaps the purest and sweetest of any in existence. A whole year went by before the chime was delivered to Garden City on December 12th, 1877. Since the tower of the cathedral was unready, the bells were temporarily housed in a specifically built structure near the cathedral and rang out their peal on Christmas morning for the first time, to the great pleasure of the residents of Garden City and Hempstead. Here we have Machinery Hall with an inside volume of 558,000 square feet. And on the left you see a screenshot from McShane Foundry's website confirming that the bells were cast there for this Machinery Hall in that year, or whenever the World's Fair started. Blah, blah, blah. Now we're going to get to the tour portion of the Cathedral Bell Tower. You see a cast iron pillar of stairs that goes up to the bell tower. This was so fun to climb, and I'm very lucky to be able to share this with you. You are looking at the bells from the Philadelphia Centennial Exposition. These bells were featured in Machinery Hall and are 13 in number, representing the original colonies of America. These bells were cast in the McShane Foundry in Baltimore, Maryland, and were noted for their sweetness and clarity. Cornelia Stewart purchased these bells soon after the passing of her husband, and they hang here today being used for regular services. You see that they are not swung any longer. They are used to be struck by these electric bell beaters here that hit the sides. And as I walked up to the building, the bells went off and I had to cover my ears. It was quite the experience. If this video receives attention and does well, I'll see if I can get some high quality recordings of these bells for you. Let's see what happens, guys. Here you see a close-up video from the casting of the 1876 bells by Henry McShane Foundry in Baltimore, Maryland. These bells were purchased and cast probably for Machinery Hall, and the date matches up with when they were cast. So I'm happy to report that there's nothing unusual here from what I've seen. I gave the bells a thorough once-over with my flashlight, inside and outside. And I'm glad I'm able to share this special tour. I was arranged to see these bells, and I'm happy to share them with you. Here we see a very rusted bell beater inside, and it's not in use, it's just held there. We see the discoloration on it. Very cool. I wonder how it got like that from being exposed probably to just hundreds of years of moisture. Interesting texture. What do you think? Here's a photo of the underside of a bell that I lit up with my flashlight. I didn't notice anything unusual, but it's nice to see places you wouldn't normally see on these. So take a look here and enjoy, guys. Thanks for watching. In conclusion, I would like to give a sincere thank you to everyone at the cathedral and who was able to make this tour possible. I would like to, really take the time to tell you all that exploring the buildings was a real treat. And I know I gave my own spin-off of the history on my narrative, but I hope you learned something from the official narrative you might not have otherwise learned. I hope you had a nice time listening to this, and I'll probably see you on the next one. Ta-da!